Well, come on, people. The stock is dipping and the board are not pleased. I don't have to explain to you the meaning of the word flesh pit again, do I? No, I didn't think so. Okay, let's warp storm this. What if we take our next box set and make it some sort of limited release run? Like say, for example, it's only available this weekend and never again. We've already done that, mistress.
Yeah, with like every new release.
Damn, okay. How about we take all the fan animation on YouTube and put it behind a paywall? That way we get paid for nothing at all.
Yeah, that's basically Warhammer Plus.
Okay, well then how about we just trick YouTubers into giving us good reviews, no matter how bad the product is.
Already on it, ma'am. Johnson the Vile and the Goblins down in Legal are already spearheading that development.
Well then, I'm all out of ideas. How about we just release some new Space Marines? Doing that right now, mistress. Drat! We need something new. Something fresh. How about New Eldari? Okay, seriously though, how about we just sell 13 models for $200 and call it a night? Alright, someone order pizza.
Games Workshop stock is tanking! Everyone panic! Wait, this is what I wanted, wasn't it? I am very conflicted right now. I like the models, but I hate the business. But yes, the Games Workshop stock is dropping, pretty substantially too. The charts are pretty stark. Games Workshop stock has been in a steady decline since mid-September. I mean, I'd love to claim credit, but they've gone from a high of £122 all the way down to £96 in mid-October. That's a drop of just over 20%. So not exactly good, especially going into Christmas, a time where we would normally expect to see Games Workshop stock go up. So, what's causing the dip? Why is Games Workshop stock in free fall? Is it bad business, the boycott, or maybe investors just found out about 3D printing? Well, today we're going to discuss just that. But first, I need to give you a caveat. When talking about stocks, basically no one has any idea about what they're talking about. I know a lot of people pretend that they do, but they don't. It's essentially a very sophisticated form of reading tea leaves. Stocks are gibberish, and just like the tides, they wax and they wane. But that said, let's put on our tasiographical hats and have a peek. Ooh. Now, this recent fall comes off the back of a pretty steady incline from Games Workshop's stock price. We're talking year after year after year after year. The stock price for Games Workshop has been steadily increasing since 2016 when Kevin Roundtree took over from Tom Kirby. Now, many viewers might not remember those days, but at that time they were on a pretty dark path. They had poor planning, they were completely unresponsive to customers, and White Dwarf was essentially a weekly catalogue. However, whenever Roundtree took over in 2016, he basically opened the floodgates to Warhammer YouTube content. Games Workshop reopened their Facebook page, and they brought White Dwarf back to a monthly release schedule. And to be honest, the company as a whole became more responsive to customer feedback. And what do you know? The stock price actually went up. Fancy that. Actually listening to what your customers want can be good for business? What a revolutionary idea. And so from 2016, Games Workshop's stock price grew like a well-tended hobbit garden. And then the global health crisis hit, like the Fire Nation. And because of local lockdowns, people became confined to their homes. And the miniature wargaming hobby got a huge new injection of hobbyists. And Games Workshop, being the most visible gateway into the hobby, became a beacon for so many new hobbyists. And this was great. And Games Workshop even started getting a lot of mainstream press, a lot of which were essentially hype puff pieces. And this ballooned the stock price. And yeah, Games Workshop also happened to make a lot of money. And they still are. Also, a quick aside, reading financial reports and analytics on the miniature wargaming hobby is actually kind of a lot of fun. They legitimately don't really get it. It's like aliens trying to understand sign language. And for your information, did you know that miniature wargaming hobbyists are considered sticky, like a cinema floor? Ugh. Basically, once they're ensnared by the Games Workshop ecosystem, they're perceived as spending a lot of money and being very unlikely to leave. That's how hobbyists are talked about in financial reports. So yeah, not exactly flattering. Now, remember all those really good things that Games Workshop did in 2016? Unfortunately, they didn't really keep. While the stock price has skyrocketed in the last 2 years, Games Workshop has begun to act with the worst of excess. Now, I'm not going to run through everything bad they've done here, because one, I already cover a lot of this on the channel, so check out some of my older videos, and two, how else am I going to capstone the year if not with a big ol' retrospective? But still, let's quickly nail down the top 5 things that Games Workshop have done wrong in recent memory. It's a video within a video! A double serving of content! Talk about your value proposition. Number 1. Predatory NDAs that trick small content creators into accidentally becoming Games Workshop employees without any pay. Whoops! Number 2. Paying staff badly. Bad. Number 3. An aggressive IP policy that has killed fan animation. PU. Number 4. Cursed City never being produced again. Wow, remember Cursed City? That feels like a very long time ago. Does it feel like a long time ago to anyone else? Jeez. Games Workshop have done a lot, haven't they? Number 5! Every single time they exploited FOMO! Too many to count! Ding 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 ding! Wow, Warhammer Plus didn't make the list? Jeez, it's a lot of stuff. So yeah, it's been a hell of a ride. I won off Mr. Roundtree's wild ride. And now, as we approach the end of 2021, could it be that all these angry skeletons have burst from Games Workshop's closet just in time for Halloween to play some spooky sounds on their xylophone ribs? This metaphor really got away from me. But yes, as Master Dooku said, twice the pride, double the fall, and the Games Workshop stock has indeed begun to tank. But Games Workshop don't think that's due to any of the aforementioned anti-consumer and frankly shady business practices. And they wouldn't, obviously. Their line on this drop is that it's entirely expected. As always, Games Workshop taking their cues from Palpatine here. Everything is proceeding as they have foreseen, apparently. Now, they have also warned shareholders that foreign exchange movements and higher freight costs are hitting them pretty badly. But also, they're not really worried, and they have even increased their sales over last year. We have to take everything they say with a grain of salt though, because obviously whenever your stock price is getting hammered, the last thing you want to do is say how much of a hammering you're taking. That's like asking the axe-wielding maniac to not step any closer because you've got a dicky leg. But they are right about one thing, freight costs are really bad right now. And I talked about this on my video about Star Wars Legion prices a few weeks back. And though Games Workshop are actually pretty resilient against this, because most of their manufacturing takes place in the UK. But the UK actually has some problems of its own right now, as it has a huge shortage of truckers because of the effects of Brexit. And going even further, one of the underreported aspects of Games Workshop's strategy over the last year has been their increasing focus on the Chinese market. If they were to get a foothold there, it would obviously open the hobby up to loads of new people, especially with the rise of the middle class, who have been Games Workshop's target demographic since the 80s. And honestly, I think this is really great. I want the hobby to be as global as it can be. More people are always welcome, but there has also been a little trouble in the Chinese economy recently. So aside from COVID, you might have heard of something called Evergrande. Now this isn't a financial channel, because miniatures are way more fun. So we're not really going to be going into any details here, but suffice to say, there's general talk of a recession that's going to hit China, and this undoubtedly hurts Games Workshop's chances in that marketplace, because miniatures are perceived as a luxury item. Although obviously people who say it's a luxury have never witnessed the shakes that I get whenever I haven't assembled any miniatures in a week. This hobby is a necessity for me. And finally, a big part of this is that we're beginning to see the end of lockdown in a lot of places. In fact, you will know that lockdown has ended on the day that I appear on camera with neat hair. And that means that investors can see Games Workshop did really well off the back of lockdown. So if lockdown is beginning to end, well, you get the picture, right? Because the current stock price reflects the fact that lots of ex-hobbyists have dusted off their collections and gone back into the hobby, as they were looking for something to do over a period of intense stress. Now that that period of time is ending, there's no doubt that there's a lot of stockholders out there who are looking to sell while the getting's good. I disagree with them though. I think lots of ex-hobbyists are gonna maintain the hobby. They're sticky after all. So there's a lot going on here. Much more than just cursed city. This big drop in share price needs to be contextualized. The unfortunate truth of the matter is, while hobbyists have been treated pretty roughly by Games Workshop, the company has nevertheless been benefiting from a lot of positive pieces in the mainstream media. You can see article after article talking about this lockdown success story. I mean, no kidding. They're basically the entirety of the UK economy right now. What a time to be alive! So this has hyped up the stock of Games Workshop over lockdown. And now that lockdown is ending, the stock price is going down. Pretty predictable. And I, for one, don't think it will drop to a disastrous level. Not based on these external factors anyway. Because really, Games Workshop stock was probably a little bit overvalued. And this inflation is just starting to be redressed. So a drop in stock price is inevitable. Unfortunately, Games Workshop's poor treatment of customers has not hurt them financially. Yet. Ta-da-da! Oh yes. Because here we have arrived at the sweet, juicy, tender core of this video, where the juice really gets slurped up. I think that actually, some of Games Workshop's anti-consumer behavior is going to come back to haunt them. And we're not just talking about how their practices are burning out existing hobbyists, or how they're running off potential new hobbyists, or how the balance of 9th edition is causing the worst games of tournament level Warhammer 40k that I have ever seen. No, this goes a lot further and deeper than that. I'm talking about a sudden sharp danger as opposed to a long steady decline. And here's why. So Games Workshop have basically spent the last year like that dog. You know, the one in the comic with his cup of tea and the fire raging all around him? This is fine. That guy. You know the one. Consumers have not been happy at all, and for pretty justified reasons. And all it takes is one of these bad moves to be picked up by someone outside the hobby and in the mainstream. And things could get very bad very quickly for Games Workshop. I mentioned a while ago in my video on the boycott back in August that the majority of boycotts don't work. And that's because they're not able to make a dent in the narrative of the targeted company. Or in other words, they're not able to damage the brand. Right now, Games Workshop are still riding on that lockdown success narrative. If that narrative were to change to something else, like say Games Workshop have put all their money into Warhammer Plus and now it's tanking, and that one could actually be really bad for Games Workshop, considering how much they rely on their IP. Although we won't know much about the Warhammer Plus numbers until their next biannual report, and a narrative like that could really hurt their share price. Likewise, that leaked NDA is a very cruel and pernicious document. If that was seized on by the mainstream press, it could represent a huge liability for Games Workshop. They keep putting themselves in very risky situations, and I'm not sure how aware of that they are. Never forget that Games Workshop have come really close to the precipice before. The times in the early 2010s was not good for Games Workshop, and back then it looked like they could fall on their own sword at any moment. Remember the narrative of the company around the Chapter House trial? Oof. It was bad. Here is a picture of their share price back then. Yeah. And honestly, the way they've behaved over the last few years is really indicative of a return to their old style of business. So while the current stock price drop does not concern me for Games Workshop's future, the reckless way they've been behaving does. And if you want to help me in my goal of creating informative content like this, please consider checking out my Patreon. You can see the fine members of my Patreon listed on the screen now, and they get early access to the skits, as well as special badges on the Discord. Ooh! And if you enjoyed this video, please hit it with a like. If you want to see more content like this in future, please subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you next time. Bye bye!